Hello, hello. Welcome back to Mistress of the Dam, the channel where we believe all knowledge is worth having. I am your Mistress Katrina. How are you doing today? If you are new here, welcome. This is where I am reading through my enormous library of books, boxed up behind me, but I finally have shelves on the walls, so hopefully next week they'll be fully restocked and you'll see my magnificent library. Anyways, I then review the book. I give you a synopsis, I tell you what I think of it. So if you like books and just aren't sure what to read next, hit that subscribe button, like and share my videos. Let me know what you think in the comments. This week's book of the week joined my library as a direct result of the woke mob. When it was released, they automatically tried to cancel the author, which means I automatically had to buy it. Didn't even matter if it was good, which it is, by the way. I so despise cancel culture and just the pig ignorance that it stands for, that whenever anyone is canceled, I mean, there's a few exceptions, right? Nazis and communists, I'm not going to support, but anybody else, I basically support them on principle. Who are we kidding? The woke mob would never cancel a communist. That's just a dumb statement. This week's book of the week is not on communism. It is Irreversible Damage by Abigail Shrier. Now, in addition to wanting to learn something new, and wanted to thumb my nose at the woke scolds, my niece is caught up in, or one of my nieces, I have four of them, one of them is caught up in this craziness. So I definitely wanted to know more for personal reasons. And on many levels, this book was completely eye-opening. Basically, it did confirm my own thoughts on what was going on with my niece. So my thoughts for her was that she developed very early, which is actually kind of universally true. Girls are physically developing earlier, but mentally they're not. They're not capable of handling it. And Abigail Shrier goes into that in this book, that basically girls who are 18 currently have the emotional maturity of a 15-year-old. So they're physically developing, but mentally they're not. That has a lot to do with nurture over nature, but that isn't specifically addressed. But my niece developed very early. I mean, she hit a C cup at like 13, which is really young. So in addition to the general awkward horror that accompanies teenage years anyways, I think she started getting bullied at school because, girls are fucking awful. I know, I was one. God, I hope I was never as bad as that, but I'm certain there's somebody out there who absolutely hates me, and if you are that person, I truly apologize. Not too long after this, she made the declaration that she was gay. No worries there. The entire family was like, if you is, you is. Good for you. But I think that she found being a lesbian was not enough to stop the bullying, because that no longer carries the social cachet that will stop people from being completely shitty to you. And anti-bullying propaganda aside, teachers are full of shit when they say there is zero tolerance for bullying, unless you fall into a truly protected class like transgender. Now, this general hypothesis of mine is borne out in spades through Shrier's careful research and investigation. The anti-bullying movement receiving all of the attention is the transgender movement, but there is so much more than just the anti-bullying that goes into the transgender movement. Shrier starts with the hypothesis that the sudden uptick in transgender girls to boys is basically a social contagion, likening it to anorexia, bulimia, cutting, suicide trends, and recovered memories. What girls need is sanity and counseling. Instead, what they get is absolute affirmation. But as Shrier points out, if you were treating a girl with anorexia, you wouldn't start by a counseling session by confirming, yes, she is fat. That's the exact wrong thing to do, right? You want to attack the underlying issues as to why she thinks this. But that doesn't happen with transgender. If a teenager goes into a doctor's office and says, I'm trans, the doctors just say, okay, yeah, you are. With absolutely zero thought as to why they might think that. And the counselor's not even allowed to question it. Questioning this will, at the very, very bare minimum least, get a counselor canceled. Most likely, they'll lose their license. I mean, it's literally a case of the inmates are running the asylum with the doctor's full blessing and support. I mean, what do you say to that? Parents are put under emotional blackmail. They're told that if they do not immediately affirm their daughter's assertions that they are trans, then the girls are at a higher risk of suicide. I mean, it's a very weird, backwards backwards land. Schreier focuses primarily on natal girls in this book because girls are the ones who are, in absolute droves, coming out as trans, when historically gender dysphoria affected boys. And I mean a very small percentage of boys. 0.01% of the population had actual gender dysphoria. But now it seems like everyone knows someone who is trans. And it's almost always a girl who is trans. And this transformation comes with an incredibly steep price. Schreier did some solid research on reporting on the drugs and procedures used to effect this transformation. The puberty blockers that are no big deal, they just buy time for a person to decide what they really are, include such long-term effects as permanent infertility. Permanent. All right? Turns out when you tell Mother Nature that you want to turn her off, she might just take you at your word and tell you to fuck off if you decide you were just kidding. The testosterone that is seen as basically the holy grail of trans girls to boys also comes with permanent, irreversible side effects. In as little as 3 months of steady doses, the change in voice is permanent, right? You go from having the higher pitch register of a girl to a very deep pitch, and that doesn't go away. That stays forever, okay? Increased body hair, you could start growing a beard, and even if you decide later that no, you're actually not trans and you want to stop, you could end up shaving forever. Okay? It can also lead to an increased risk for ovarian cancer and heart disease. The increased risk is significant, like twice as likely to die of a heart attack than even the average man. All right? Additionally, doses of testosterone can lead to vaginal atrophy, which is just as horrifying as it sounds. It's basically you stop producing the lubrication that's necessary for proper functioning of anything, which leads to horribly painful cramps. So bad that sometimes the best recommendation a doctor can give is hysterectomy. So again, even without the puberty blockers, you're at a high risk for permanent infertility. When girls have the double mastectomy to give them a man's chest, this cannot just be undone. And you might achieve a credible breast with implants, but having removed the required understructure of mammary glands, you will never be able to breastfeed your children. This is assuming you haven't done so much damage to your other reproductive organs through doses of testosterone that were never meant for a woman that your reproductive organs don't just quit. It's horrible. It's... She's not saying... And Abigail Schreier doesn't say that this isn't, that there aren't in fact transgender girls, right, or girls to boys. She acknowledges, yes, that there are some, but this is not something that should be undertaken when you're 16, 17 years old. You're still forming. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you're going to be like in a decade. And so just making these sort of permanent life-altering decisions at 16 and 17 is absolutely insane. But Schreier includes some hope among the horror. There is a small but growing community of detransitioners. There is a Reddit forum and plenty of YouTube videos of girls who, after walking down the pathway, determined they were not trans. What added an additional layer of horror to some of these stories is the very clear indication that there are sexual predators among the trans community. And that's horrifying. I do have a friend who is trans, and it breaks my heart thinking that she might be subject to that. Schreier does not decry the entire community as predators, clarifies very much like a straight community, even the gay community, the predators are not the norm, but they are there. And they will take advantage through the métier of the trans community, telling a girl to boy that failure to participate in a desired communication is kink shaming. Yeah, let's just groom an already vulnerable population for further abuse and say that it's okay. I mean, wow, way to look out for the vulnerable. The book was really good. Nowhere in there does Schreier judge anyone. She certainly allows for the reality that there are transgender men and women and addresses this topic with empathy and reason. But she rings an important alarm bell in this cultural phenomenon, and the long-lasting consequences of this for our girls and possible steps to turn back the tide. I mean, one of the doctors she interviewed, and I certainly agree with this, said that in 10 or 20 years, this is going to end with lawsuits. there will be commercials on television. Were you encouraged to be transgender by your doctor in high school? You may be entitled to compensation. A lot of doctors who are raking in the dough now are going to reap judgment, and it's going to be hideous and horrifying, and the population as a whole suffers, but the medical community is losing so much credibility with this. It's unreal. They said this was a good book. It wasn't very long, hence my review not being very long. I didn't go into all the details in here because the details are truly heartbreaking, but it's so well written. It's just so well written. I'll include some of the resources that she mentions in the comments for, detransitioners, for parents, for people who are concerned. One of the interesting things is multiple people she interviewed, both the girls who stopped transitioning and parents, indicated this was a cult, which kind of led to next week's book of the week, because I kind of wanted to learn more about cults, because I'm like, wow, okay, this is kind of becoming a recurring theme in my videos, a lot of people saying cults, so let's see what that is. But I don't know. My heart breaks for these girls. Schreier points out that one of the reasons she thinks transgender, girl to boy, is taking off is that we have so demonized what it is to be a woman. The feminists have gone absolutely insane, screeching about how women make less money than men, and women are subject to rape culture, and they make being a woman sound so fucking terrifying. Why would you ever want to be one? Instead of talking about the positive, good things that women can do. And incidentally, if you watched my review a while back about Who Stole Feminism, you'll know that the women make less money than men, and the rape culture things are absolute fucking lies. So we're lying to these girls to make them not want to be girls, and we're reaping some pretty sad benefits from those lies. This whole shit show is sad. Not just for the girls who are giving up their futures on a lie, but for women in general. And we've demonized ourselves into oblivion. Well done, women. You've done so good here, fucking up the feminist movement. Super proud. And that's it for this week. Thank you for watching Mistress of the Damned, where I believe free speech is the most important right, which is why it is first. And if you believe this too, then you too are damned, and I am your mistress. Welcome to hell. Bye.